Welcome to class 12 of Secretarial practice. In the last class, we were dealing with certificate of incorporation and regarding incorporation stage. So now we'll discuss something about the secretarial duties with relation to the incorporation stage. So the duties to be performed by the secretary at the incorporation stage is as under. So the first is you have to make arrangement to file the application for the register along with the documents and charges. So for filing of the application for the registrar in order to get the company registered. So to get the company registered, there are some prescribed documents like memorandum of association, articles of association, notice of address of registered office, forms relating to the director, statutory declaration, etc. And these prescribed documents should be filed with the registrar with the necessary charges. So charges like your stamp duty, filing charges or filing fee and registration charges. The second duty is to see all the legal requirements are complied with. So according to Companies Act, so there are some legal requirements. So there are some provisions under the Companies Act. So all those provisions should be compulsorily followed in order to get your company registered. So these are the legal requirements, and the secretary should see that all these legal requirements as prescribed by the Act is being followed completely or not, or agreed totally or not. The next is to obtain the certificate of incorporation. So as soon as you get your company registered, it is your duty to get the certificate of incorporation. So here what you are going to do, as soon as possible you are going to get or obtain the certificate of incorporation. So it is noted that the private company, as I have told you in the beginning of the class itself, the private company can start their business as soon as they get the incorporation certificate, but the public company to be or to become so entitled will have to complete the following stages also, or the rest two stages also. The next stage is your capital subscription stage. So capital subscription stage will be relating to only the public company, because the private company, what they do, soon after the certificate of incorporation they are going to start their business. So the public company, in this stage the public company, what they do, they make the necessary arrangement for raising the capital of the company. So they need capital to start their company, and as a public company they are going to allow for the public subscription. So what they do, they make the necessary arrangement for raising the finance or capital of the company. So it may be mentioned here that after incorporation the affairs of the company will be in the hands of the directors. So it is very surprising that the promoters who are there in the beginning itself, they themselves becomes the first directors of the company. In order to make the necessary arrangements for the raising of the capital of a company, the meeting of the board will be held. So in order to make such arrangements, we are going to convey for the board meeting. Okay, so in board meeting what we are going to do, the first is we are going to appoint the secretary. So we are going to appoint the secretary, fix the salary, terms, condition of office appointment. So what happens, usually the pro tem secretary who was there in the promotion stage, normally he will be continued as regular. So sometimes it is in the hands of the director whether to continue with the pro tem secretary or they are going to appoint the new one. But usually what happens, the pro tem secretary will continue as regular. The next is appointment of banker, brokers, auditors, solicitors, etc. So bankers are needed, brokers are needed to sell the shares to the investors, auditor is needed to audit, solicitors means the legal practitioners like lawyers and all. So their appointment will be done in the board meeting. Then the next is approving the preliminary contract. So preliminary contract means the contract which you have undertaken or which you are going to have the contract with a third party in the promotion stage itself, so that we call it as preliminary contract. So that contract, when you are going to make it in the promotion stage, so it will be not enforceable by law. So why? Because the company cannot ratify it. But now what happens, the preliminary contract becomes the provisional contract, which means before the commencement of business you are going to enter into the contract, and after the certificate of incorporation. So such preliminary contracts you are going to get it approved, underwriting contract, and you are going to draft a prospectus. So the next is application to be made to the stock exchange for listing the shares of the company. So as it is a public company, it is your duty to get the company shares listed. Only then you can allow it for the public subscription. So what happens now in this case? In this case you have to get your shares of the company should be listed in the stock exchange, and only then you can deal with the public, or you can allow for the public subscription. So application will be made to the stock exchange in order to get your shares listed. Then the next is file the copy of prospectus. So here file the prospectus. So prospectus means invitation to the public to make or subscribe the shares, right? So that you are going to file with the registrar. So it is necessary for the public company. Okay, so public company, for public company it is necessary. So but sometimes what happens, if the public company is going to decide to contribute the capital privately, or they are going to obtain the much needed capital privately without approaching the public, so in this case what happens, they are going to file the statement in lieu of prospectus. So there is something called statement in lieu of prospectus, so that to be prepared, and that should be filed with the registrar at least 3 days before the allotment of shares. Then the next is duties of the secretary with relates to the capital subscription stage. The first is to prepare draft copy of prospectus. So prospectus is needed. Suppose you are not going to prepare the prospectus, so you are going to have statement in lieu of prospectus. Okay, so you are going to prepare and draft the copy of prospectus. The next is to make arrangement for holding the first meeting of board. So in that first meeting of board meeting, you are going to get the prospectus drafted prospectus, preliminary contracts, so all these things what you have prepared or drafted, so that you are going to get it approved in the board meeting. The next is to arrange for printing of prospectus. So you have drafted the prospectus, got approval, so now it is the step, so that is you are going to print the prospectus. The next is file the copy of prospectus with the registrar. So you have printed now, so that you are going to file it with the registrar. The next is approve the appointment of secretary, auditor, etc. So in the board meeting you have decided to appoint. So now what you are going to do, you are going to get such things approved in the board meeting. So approved. Okay. The next is to arrange for opening the bank account. The next, get common seal approved. Each company should have their own common seal, and such common seal will be approved in the board meeting. So the next is to make necessary arrangement for receiving the application of shares. So when you are going to issue the shares, you should issue the prospectus first, and with respect to the prospectus you are going to receive the application for the shares. The next is application for stock exchange for listing. So as I have told you, you are going to make an application to the stock exchange to get your shares listed. So necessary arrangements or steps will be taken by the secretary to make the proper application for the stock exchange for listing of the shares. The next is convey board meeting. So board meeting will be conveyed where the resolution for the allotment of the shares will be passed. So you are going to make a necessary arrangement for that. To make necessary arrangement for issue of letter of allotment. So issue of letter of allotment means soon after the application what you are going to receive. So to whom the shares will be allotted, for them you have to give the letter of allotment of shares. So that you are going to make a necessary arrangement. The next is to take steps to issue the letter of regret and to refund application money to those who no shares are allotted. So to say sorry letter, right? Regret means you are going to feel sorry or you are going to refund because you have already received the application money at the application money you have received, so you are going to refund that because you are not going to allot them any shares. The next is to take steps to file return of allotment with the registrar within 30 days of allotment, which means return of allotment means, so this is a statement submitted to the registrar which contains the name, address of the shareholders and the numbers of shares allotted to each shareholders, and so these statements will be signed by the directors or the secretary and it will be filed with the registrar within 30 days of allotment. So this is regarding the capital subscription stage and the duties relating to capital subscription stage. So the last stage is your commencement of business stage, so that we are going to discuss in the next class.